The Field of 68 Media Network presents Red is the New Orange, a Syracuse basketball podcast.
Vince intercepts a pass, breakaway for the freshman guard, he flies and slams! Aerial assault from Judah Mintz.
Looking to go back door to Bell, they get it to him near corner three, knocks it down! Chris Bell, the sharpshooter.
Bringing you everything you need to know out of the 315.
Up top, Williams surges ahead, up with the right hand and in. A pretty up and under move from Benny Williams to beat his man.
Over to Taylor, he skips into the lane, puts up a floater, it drops in.
Let's get it started with your host, Kiyan Anthony and Johnny Gadamowitz.
They say winning cures all ailments. Syracuse basketball is 2-0. Youngstown State tomorrow. You heard our podcast. You know what's up. You probably listened to Max Gifford this morning. We hope you did. He provided us some really nice insights on what to expect with the Penguins. But that is the least thing on anyone's mind in the 315 right now. Because Johnny Gadamowitz, Kiyan Anthony, is the latest member of Syracuse's class of 2025. Let's freaking party.
And it feels great. It feels great. I think Orange fans were a little worried. You start to think about Auburn, SEC, okay, USC, Southern Cal, Hollywood. But Kiyan, sticking to his roots, wants to follow in Daddy's footsteps. And Orange fans reinvigorated, to say the least.
Because Syracuse has put out two subpar performances on the court. Let's make that very clear. But National Signing Day was yesterday. Sadiq White has inked an NLI. He is a top 25 prospect, and Kiyan Anthony is now in tow. We would have been a little worried if he didn't commit to Syracuse, but all that's out the window. And he released the decision on his dad's podcast, 7 p.m. in Brooklyn. It came out at 5:30, so really 5:30 p.m. in Brooklyn. And he did his little monologue. Every recruit does the monologue now. With that being said, I want to thank all the coaches that recruited me and put their time in. Yeah,
he checked all the boxes.
It's a dime a dozen. It's a dime a dozen. But regardless, the most impressive and important thing about this whole recruiting process, and both of his parents, Melo and Lala, made it clear that this was Kiyan's decision. They let him be. They let him make the choices. They went on the visits with him, and his dad gave him feedback. But this was purely a Kiyan Anthony decision to come to Syracuse. Did his dad's influence play a role? Absolutely. Of course. I mean, how could it not? Everyone wants to party like it's 2003. It would make so much sense. And I'm sure he sees the jerseys and the pictures and the statues and is influenced by that. But it wasn't the other way around. Carmelo Anthony did not force his son to go to Syracuse. He did not push his son towards Red Autry. It was totally natural.
And honestly, good on Kiyan for doing that and not shying away from it, right? A lot of the conversation that has developed and that will continue to develop is, look, he's not his dad. That's fine. Nobody's asking him to be his dad. And I give him a ton of credit for being willing to put up with all that. Because let's be frank, that's naturally where the conversation is going to go. For better or worse,
Bronny James.
Fair or unfair, when you are Carmelo Anthony's son and you play your college ball in Central New York just like Melo did, obviously that's the chatter and that's the conversation. But for him to not only not let that scare him away, A, but B, to fully embrace it with open arms, I think that really shows a lot of maturity. And Ian, this deserves to be celebrated. I mean, it really does. It's an exciting time for Syracuse basketball. I know it's two games where you walk away scratching your head a little bit, but you think about it, right? New era, new head coach, starting to really put his fingerprints on the program. And you're seeing Syracuse slowly but surely reaping the benefits. And this is somebody who comes from a big-time program at Lehigh, who knows what it's like to go up against the best players in the country. Lehigh played Cooper Flagg last year, let's not forget, at the high school circuit level. Teammates with guys who were 5 stars. So look, is he going to be Carmelo? No, nobody's asking him to be Carmelo, but that doesn't make it any less exciting than it should be.
He said that in middle school, when he was a freshman in high school, people used to compare him to his dad and say, you should play like him. You should follow in his footsteps. But his dad said, no, play your own game. I mean, Melo will back you down and get a bucket from anywhere. Kiyan's a pure shooter. And we've talked about this on past podcasts, but for those of you that might have missed it, he is a quick stroke. Johnny, I think he can be a Trevor Cooney level of three-point shooter. I think that's the level of shooter he can be. But he's not just a fly around the screen and let it rip guy. He can put it on the ground and score in multiple different ways. That's going to be so crucial for a team that next year might not have J.J. Starling. Jaquan Carlos will be out the door after his grad year. You need ball handlers that can create. Anthony will get a lot of that load.
And I think what's really exciting, too, about it, Ian, is that he'll have an impact day one. Is he going to reach his full potential by day one? Obviously not. Everybody grows and everybody gets better with time. But this is not some situation where he's going to be a project. From the moment he steps on campus, this is someone who, look, obviously we'll have to see how the offseason plays out. But I'd be surprised if he wasn't starting right from the jump. I'd be surprised if he wasn't one of the real impact players right from the jump. So will there be a learning curve? Of course there will. But you mentioned the high volume shooting. Look, shooting translates, right? Obviously, the jump from high school to college is a big one. And there are so many things that are different at various levels. But if you could shoot, you could shoot. And that is something that is going to bode well for him as he gets his feet wet in the college game.
Now, from a Syracuse recruiting standpoint, let's look at this. He told ESPN, worldwide leader put out an article earlier today. I'm going to do everything Coach Autry needs me to do. We talk a lot, especially late at night, about how we can make Syracuse basketball great. Off the court, Coach is super cool. You could go out with him on a Friday night. If I see Red Autry at Lucy's, I will buy him a drink. And I think he should probably get free drinks for the entire night. He's still young and connects with all his players. He's very relatable. I'm sorry, but that's not what was being said about Jim Boeheim. And in this day and age, you don't get flowers for being a legend. It's, can I level with you? Do you sound like you're going to make me an NBA player? And of course, how much can you pay me? That part doesn't really get talked about as much, but you get the picture, right? 20 years ago, playing for Jim Boeheim had all the aura and luster in the world. And all these coaches are getting out of the game because 60, 70-year-olds aren't necessarily relatable anymore. The transition came at the right time. And this is a moment that reinforced it.
And Red really, it does feel like, at least through the year and change we've seen from him in the driver's seat, is able to toe that fine line of being the player's coach, but also having control of the locker room and knowing when to put his foot down and knowing when to hold his guys accountable. Obviously, he has his own methods and his own ways of doing that, but it does feel like he really checks both boxes. And the other thing that's appealing about it, too, when you get a recruit like this, the impact that then has on other recruits. Okay, this guy wants to go play for him. Well, I'm sure there's a reason for that. Maybe I should look into this a little deeper. And there is that real sort of ripple effect. So you hope it sort of catches fire. You hope it maybe makes Syracuse a little bit more legitimate if it wasn't already. Not to say that it wasn't, but just gives it that much more of, emphasis when it comes to being able to go out there and win these big time recruiting battles for these highly touted guys.
And I think you have to give Sadiq White some credit too, because he committed early to Syracuse, signed his letter of intent, and Kiyan Anthony expressly mentioned, look, I want to go play with Sadiq White, who according to 24/7 Sports is the 26th best player in the country. Sadiq White is playing at IMG Academy, but Kiyan Anthony is playing in New York City. And we've talked about the New York City recruiting market, the hotbed it is, and how Syracuse doesn't have any pull at the moment in the 5 boroughs. That is an issue that needs to be solved, given that UConn is so good, given that Pitino is somehow summoning an NIL war chest to St. John's, and the Vultures are circling. Syracuse needs to get back in there, and this is the start.
Yeah, and if I'm not mistaken, I believe I saw that this Anthony commitment propels SU to now a top 5 recruiting class.
6
as far as
24/7's world, but I'm sure it's top 10 everywhere.
Right. So really big statement. You're right, Ian. If you want to hang with the UConns, the St. John's, heck, I'd say recently even the Seton Halls, it seems like, are really dominating the Northeast.
And of course,
good
Kansas,
for Syracuse.
Kansas, Duke, Kentucky, if anyone they want, they're coming in to take.
So good for the Orange for not only reinserting themselves into that conversation, but now hopefully here to stay.
So Kiyan Anthony will be a Syracuse Orangeman, you get it, in 2025.
Is he number 15? That's the real question. Is he going to make everybody go out and get new jerseys, or is everybody with Melo jerseys going to be able to reuse them for a different purpose?
He did not wear 15 in high school. And something tells me, given the way his recruitment went, that he might not want to wear 15. I think there is a bit of a trailblazer mentality inside of him. Even though he is coming to Syracuse, I think he'll want his own path just a little bit. Either way, this is a great day to be a Syracuse basketball fan. Enjoy your weekend. Enjoy the contest with Youngstown State tomorrow at 1 o'clock, and we will catch up with you on Monday morning. As always, go Orange.